All right, everybody. Welcome to our panel. We're very excited to share with you an amazing panel that's going to talk about how AI is reshaping CS careers and how to win. First of all, I want to start by giving you some headlines. Amazon lays off thousands as it shifts investment toward AI and automation. Google cuts jobs across engineering and product teams amid AI restructuring. Doubling down on generative AI initiatives. Microsoft reduces workforce despite record AI-driven revenues. IBM pauses hiring for roles that expects AI to replace. Salesforce cuts jobs, citing productivity gains from AI tools. And tech layoffs continue even as demand for AI talent skyrockets. Yeah, might be a little bit laughable, but I'm Abe Begili. I'm the chair of computer science and engineering here at LSU. This is a topic we greatly care about at LSU in our division. And I want to pass it on now. I would like to ask each of you to introduce yourself in 15 seconds, who you are, what you do, and your current relationship with AI in your work. I'm going to pass it on to Justin.
Hey, thanks, Abe. I'm Justin Obney. I'm the founder of Obney AI. We build production AI systems for Louisiana companies, and we teach engineers how to build them. We also help partner with LSU because we believe that engineering is really the key to making AI do what we want. And so I'm happy to get into this conversation today. I'm going to kick it off to Jeremy.
Thanks, Justin. Hey, I'm Jeremy Bate, the co-founder and CEO of 368. We are a creative digital agency, and today I think I'll be providing this perspective of someone who comes more from the other side of the world, the front end, where we implement growth strategies. We look at how AI is used as a tool for communication and a tool for productivity. So I'm happy to be here, and I will pass it to Cameron.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hey everybody, my name is Cameron Barre and I'm the CTO at Obney AI. I'm a hands-on software engineer, and one of my responsibilities is exploring how our company integrates AI into our products and our developer workflows in ways that allow us to actually be accountable for our work. And with that, I'll hand it off to Corey.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Hall, and I have the pleasure of serving as the new CEO of Project Vic International, where I lead a growing group of 20-plus engineers, former detectives, policy analysts, and former prosecutors. We are a tech charity that equips and trains crimes against children investigators who stand in the gap each day to protect children from predators. We use AI every day to help make tools and training for those investigators, and the intelligence and tools that we make are free. We have a growing collection of forensic and analysis tools and other machine learning capabilities. We have an open source crimes against children ontology that we just released. And for those investigators that need a GPU to run machine learning models at high speed, we have the GPUs for Good initiative, where we receive and test donated GPUs and ship them to an investigator in need. I'll pass it on to Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Fiegler. I am Crow's AI governance expert. I've consulted with a lot of the Fortune 10 tech firms, as well as with the FBI, the Pentagon, and the federal government. I'm also a proud LSU alumnus. I'm a third generation LSU alumni, and I've met my wife there. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, you're wearing an LSU t-shirt. I'm wearing the Tiger. Thank you, Alex, for being an awesome alumni. And thank you all for being part of this. We really appreciate you being here. If I missed any other LSU alumni that are with us, I'm sorry. Perhaps I should know better. So I want to start by asking the first question. And the first question is, are we past the AI hype cycle, or are we still overestimating what AI can do in real world software development? Please take a stab at this, and let's start a conversation about it.
The way I've been viewing it is not really like a hype cycle, but like a honeymoon phase. Like if you saw CES this year, everything had AI in it. Like my Duolingo app has AI in it now. I think what we're getting to is what's the reality of actually using this stuff, and that's what we talk to our clients about. Like, okay, we spent $5 million giving everyone ChatGPT. What do we do with it? And I think that's the phase we're in right now.
So I'll go ahead and add. I personally don't think that this is a hype cycle in the traditional sense. We are barely putting our fingers into what AI is going to become. Maybe we're a 0.5% along that journey. It's definitely not hype. This is real.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll offer a perspective. I liken this. Some people are going to hate this. Some people might love this, but I liken this moment to early crypto, which is, if you follow the trends of Bitcoin, there were multiple hype cycles along the way. Like, oh, it hit this number, it crashed. Then it hit this number and crashed. I personally see this as the first hype cycle of many hype cycles that we will probably experience, because from where I'm sitting, if you know the Gartner hype cycle, you have enthusiasm, which quickly rises to delusionment, which rises to completely unrealistic expectations. You crash down into the trough of disillusionment, and then you climb back out to reality. And I see us sort of as climbing to the first level of reality right now. Like, we went through the first phase of this is going to take everyone's jobs. Now we're like, maybe not, but what do we do now? And I don't think this is the end. I think this is the very first of many hype cycles, which will only get bigger. That's just an opinion. That's how I see it.
Cameron, I know last year your answer to this question would have been a lot different than it is this year, a year later. Can you kind of speak to maybe what your answer is and why it might be different now?
Oh yeah, I think I agree with Jeremy that we're seeing multiple sort of hype waves, kind of, with peaks and troughs. And I don't know that I'd agree that we're in the first one. I think whenever ChatGPT like 4 came about, that was kind of the first big one, at least for developers, because you could now sort of like do some level of problem solving and ask questions and not have to Google things and whatever. But it was still like very, very bad at just sort of end-to-end solutions. And so a year ago, I never thought that I would be using AI to write like the majority of my like production code. But after like Opus 4.5 and Claude Code came about, 6-7 months ago or whatever, like that completely changed for me. And so I think what people are doing is that everyone has a different perspective on the spectrum of what AI can do. Some people's views on it are more sophisticated than others, and everyone is seeing different stuff. And so there's definitely utility here that isn't just hype, but there's a lot of people that are still just kind of like hyping up capabilities that they either think are possible but aren't, or just don't understand yet.
I just saw this comment in the chat about comparing AI to like the invention of the iPhone. That's exactly how I'm thinking about it, where it was this new thing and it was amazing. Now we all have one. We all have a smartphone. I think that's the way AI is going to be. When we talk to our clients, every dev team has an AI tool now, like Claude Code or Amazon Q, and they literally cannot think about going backwards and not having that assistant now.
Well, yeah, I think this is the worst it's ever going to be, and we're already seeing insane capabilities. And so I think that's I remember the first iPhone before the 3G came out. Like, it didn't even have copy and paste, and it was amazing. And that was the worst it was ever going to be. And very similar kind of trajectory, but probably faster.
So go ahead. I was gonna say, like, I was the guy that saw the iPhone and I was like, man, where are the buttons? Because I need to send emails on my BlackBerry. So it's like, I think like people have different perspectives, and I think that's important. But I think the most important thing that I'm hearing is there is utility. Like that's the critical part. When you were talking about blockchain, for example, or cryptocurrency, for me, it's like, yeah, there's like so much, like for me, there's a little utility there compared to what AI is, right? Because blockchain, from even a scientific perspective, it's really only good for cryptocurrency when you talk about efficiency and everything else that comes with that. That's just my perspective. But when you look at AI, the utility space is huge, right? And I think that's really where we're trying to figure out how it could be used and what we could do with it. And this is where I think the bubble kind of question really transpires, right? Which brings us to kind of the idea of if this a bubble, is it fundamentally reshaping the tech workforce in ways that will not reverse? And maybe Justin, you can start by saying something there, and maybe offer a quick perspective on that.
I personally don't think this is a bubble, because we're talking about it, and like you said, we're already getting utility out of it. And so it's not like we're blindly putting our faith in this thing. And I think the spectrum is so wide that it can't be a bubble either, because you can use it at a very low risk situation to do amazing things for communication, but you also can utilize it in very important processes where they have to be engineered to not cause bad outcomes. And I personally don't think it's a bubble, but what I really kind of think too in this conversation is like how enterprises are looking at this, because when they start to see it and their opinions really start to come in, like, I don't think enterprises think this is a bubble, but I might be wrong on that. Alex, from your perspective, kind of, what are you seeing there?
So I don't believe it's a bubble because we're seeing value from it. Like, do y'all remember NFTs? And it was like the pictures of monkeys and it was nonsense, like pure stupidity behind that. But that was a hype cycle because there was no real value you got out of those. Like, you could just copy and paste the image and it's yours. But we're actually seeing real usage of AI, especially in the banking front and the compliance front. And it's making our clients' lives easier. So there is a real value to keep purchasing this in the long run. So that's why I don't think it's a hype cycle.
I think as far as bubbles go, I mean, like if we're talking about economic bubble, TBD, maybe. But in terms of actual usefulness, I think if someone can't figure out a way to get like more than $20 of value out of like the $20 a month like Anthropic subscription or something, they're not trying very hard. Like, there's undeniable effects that these tools are having on the amount of labor required to do activities that would have taken a longer time just a year ago, now to being able to like really compress the life cycle of certain kinds of development efforts in software engineering that I think are undeniable at this point. So
Corey or Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
I can share a quick thought. I'll leave room for you, Corey. But from the lens of a marketer, we talk about blue ocean and red ocean markets. And a blue ocean market has an excess of demand and a shortage of supply. So you want to go there, right? There's a lot of opportunity. Red ocean is oversaturated with supply and competition. What I think we have is like a blue ocean market, like so much opportunity around AI's utility and value. So in that ocean, there are little bubbles. Lead generation AI software is a bubble, but it's like a little bubble. So economically, like Cameron said, we'll see kind of how this shakes out, but I don't think we're in a bubble either. I think we're in a blue ocean market.
Yeah, so I would just add that today is a great day to be alive. It's a great year to be alive. And frankly, what I've experienced just over the last 3 months of what what AI assisted development is helping me do, I'm able to accomplish in 2 or 3 days what I would have needed $1 million and 2 full-time engineers and a project manager for 2 years ago. So we now live in an age where you can execute almost as fast as you can imagine. That's a paradigm shift, and I'm super excited about where this is going to go.
Oh, I love that. Like, I have a daughter that's 8 years old, and I'm thinking about getting her into starting to build her own games because the barrier is very small. And I know that we can build some really awesome creative opportunities through that. And I think like that echoes that message, Corey, because there's never really been a time where the distance between like, I want to learn this and I can do this is really just smaller. And that's what I really tell my daughters. I was like, AI is just a computer that helps you do your job. And when I really think about it, they're going to grow up assuming that that's just what computers do. Because like if a computer didn't do that, it'd sound like a pretty crappy computer, wouldn't it? And that's the world that is happening now.
It's an interesting thought experiment to kind of look at this through an economic lens of, like, to your point, Corey, you can build $1 million deployment in a week or in a day, but it was $1 million because there was a shortage of supply of the skills it took to create that thing. Now, as you've flattened the supply or created an excess of supply of utility, does it still have that value? And if not, where does the value go? So that's kind of an interesting thought experiment.
I think the place. Go ahead, Corey. I guess what I was going to say is, like, where would you speak to accountability? Is I think like where Jeremy may be looking at is that from the value piece.
So, solutions to problems always are valuable.
Yeah.
And what we used to have to do as engineers is we would say, well, let's get some funding. We're going to, and getting funding could take 2 or 3 or 4 years of trying to convince, upper management or the government to give you a grant or whatever. But now we're at a point where it's like, I have an idea, I have an understanding of a problem, and now I can go maybe by myself or with a colleague, and we can execute what would once be $1 million, like full stack capability. But now what we would have created with $1 million before, we can build that same thing as a prototype, right? So it's like, here's a fully featured prototype, and I teamed with AI to make it in a week. So like what comes after that? Well, that's for you to go explore, in your businesses. And so, maybe now we've got more capabilities. We've got richer environments. We're able to make systems of systems much easier now. For far less cheaper, but we're still solving problems. That's what engineers do. We solve problems.
So one of the cool things that we did as an experiment in our ethics course is we wanted students to try to retain information in terms of what they're learning in the computing ethics course. And we actually have a paper that we submitted on this with one of my students, Trevor Spinoza. And the idea was each student gets to create their song using Suno AI about the things that they learned. And then based on that, hopefully they can, because if a song has a hook, you typically remember it, right? We all start singing the lyrics, right? So I think there are creative ways where we can actually leverage AI also in the educational space, not just in terms of teaching and curriculum development and things like that, but also if we focus on the computing students and IT students, what can we teach them, right? And what tools currently, like that all of you have seen in terms of professionals and students need to start working with. So even if they're not taking in the classroom, which we're going to be doing that at LSU, and we've already started doing that massively actually at LSU, but we want to do that more. What tools, right, should students be learning right now based on what you guys are seeing? So if you were just to think about it, and students are watching, professionals are watching right now, right? Let's start talking about the tools and techniques that people should be using right now.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually wrote down kind of the tools that are my daily drivers right now, and I know that I'm constantly texting Abe and saying, "Hey, Abe, like, have you seen this? Like, train your students to do this, like, right now."
Actually, it's more than that. He sends me videos of all the products he's developing consistently. I was like, dude, I just did this before. It used to cost me this much. I literally just did this for $20. But anyways,
right? Yeah. So my daily drivers are Cursor AI, and in Cursor AI, I use the latest Opus, GPT, and Gemini, and I use them off of each other. Now, I've built a lot of systems over my career. So I've got a huge foundation underneath me that helps me use these capabilities to move really fast and build things that I know are solving problems. On top of that, I use XAI's Grok for code review. I find that it's really, really superb in doing code review. You give it source code and you just say, hey, like, review this. The review that I get back is excellent. I then take that and I put it right back into Cursor and I say, hey, Opus, look at this. And basically, if you agree and I agree, like, go ahead and implement this. On top of that, I do use Gemini Pro with Nano Banana to help me make marketing things and slides. We've all labored like hundreds of hours making slide decks. Now you just give Nano Banana a prompt and maybe an example, and in 10 seconds you get something that's better than you could have ever made. On top of that, I use Figma Make for fast and visual prototyping. If you think about like having a workflow application, Figma Make is really, really good at that. Not only can you demonstrate something very quickly, but you can also export the source code. And in some cases, I take that source code and I dump it right back over into Cursor, and then just start building the whole capability out and deploying it. I also have GPUs. I build our products here to use GPUs natively, so that AI models can run really fast. And then I'm also a really big fan and proponent of knowledge graphs and ontologies for explaining how these forensics tools work, modeling the provenance of data, and then ensuring semantic interoperability between the tools our investigators use. That's my daily drivers.
I would add Replit to that list. We're using that for app development at a certain large tech firm in the Bay Area that I can't name, but we're finding it's absolutely fantastic to use, super easy to get comfortable with. And then N8N, just 2 lowercase n's, 8 in the middle, also a fantastic tool. But make sure you hit on the big ones. So like ChatGPT, Claude, you want to have those on your resume, and then get as much experience as possible as all the different ones you can. So whenever that recruiter is looking at you, they're like, oh, Claude, you've got Replit, you've got all of them. So you're hitting those boxes for the recruiter, and then they move you on to the next interview.
So I'm just did you say Replit? Is that what you said?
Replit.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna give a shout out to Amjad, the CEO of Replit. He's actually from my home country in Jordan.
Oh.
He came and he built this massive company, and just really cool stuff that he's done. Took it from just sort of an online code editor to something completely different. So shout out to Jordan, just because I'm from there, and to Amjad for starting the company. But I'm going to have you guys continue talking about this. But I do think we might want to just take a question from the audience. Justin, if you want to just read out that question and maybe share it with the audience.
Yeah, so the question is, we've talked about how AI is making our work more efficient, and how do we think this will impact the broader job market over the next few years, especially for entry-level roles? And so I'll kick this one to Cameron, because Cameron is both responsible for all of our engineering and using our tools, as well as responsible for bringing up the next level of developers that are jumping in to take those positions over for Cameron.
Thanks. Yeah, so we're a small company, so we don't have many employees, but we believe that the world still needs junior talent and needs to grow junior talent into senior talent. And so that's our philosophy at Omni AI. And I think that there is a lot of executive level delusion out there today. This is part of the hype cycle discussion, where executives overestimate they overestimate the ability of AI models today and coding agent products and everything, and they mistakenly apply experience to those tools. But these tools don't have experience. They don't really solve problems. They haven't been around the block like actual professionals have been. They haven't been in sticky situations and had to get out of them. And so while these tools are really good for reducing the amount of labor required to do software development, they still need to be driven by competent engineers. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. And so all I can say, I think it's going to be very uncomfortable for a little while for like people getting out of college, getting into entry level roles, and for the companies that are mistakenly believing that they don't need these entry level roles. So what I can say to people just starting to get into the job market is the paradigm is going to be shifting for getting a job as a developer. And if you can show and tell that you know what you're doing and can produce systems and applications that actually have value, and you can prove that you're competent, that's going to be more relevant than it has been for, say, the last 10 years, where like programming interviews are dominated by like LeetCode and like code challenges and stuff. It's going to go back to how it was before then for a bit, where if you could show that you know what you're doing, people are going to see you and be interested in you because there's not enough people with the skill set for the market demand.
Anybody else have any opinions on this question?
I think that's spot on. Corey, go ahead. You're good.
Yeah, so you know, my thoughts are that, you know, we live in a free market, and if AI can take your job, it will. So what do? I'd say go team with AI to work on the problems in the world that you want to solve. There will always be new problems to work on, but we all need a different mindset in this age of AI. There's never been a better time to go start your own company, or go team with your friends, or go team with an existing small company. Really, it's about finding a problem that you want to work on and solve in the world. So, you know, I look at it and like when I hire interns, I'm looking for problem solving abilities. I'm looking for systems thinking. I'm looking for people who are willing to take risk, people who've got entrepreneurship skills. And I firmly believe that, you know, the approach that we've all kind of followed, I would say, you know, in computer science, about getting an engineering degree and then moving into a nice, you know, junior entry level job in a big tech company, those days are over. They're quickly being eroded. So like I encourage students to really start thinking critically about how they transition, and the model is not what it used to be. That's for sure. What it's going to be in the next couple of years, I'm still uncertain, but I know that it's changing. I'm hearing it from my friends who are out interviewing. So we need to keep talking about this. I'll just leave it at that.
I would say make sure you're comfortable using these tools and you have some experience you can point to when you're in that interview process, because the recruiters are going to want to make sure that you have confidence in these tools, because our clients are asking about them every day. So the more comfort you can show will show us that we can get you onto our project like day one, and you're going to stand up above all the other candidates.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit about my perspective on this. Number one is, I think there was a whole era of time when computer science graduates, developers, there was almost a running joke, like they're in the back closet, don't bother them. You know, like they don't even talk to people. They're in the dark. Like that was like a stereotype. I think those days are over. You are now, your job is going to change, and you're going to have to be a translator and an ambassador for the technology, and be that person who can explain it, represent it, and communicate that system level thinking, you know, about how it works and solves the problem. And I'm personally excited about that, because that language is sort of coming down now. And there will be a huge need for people who understand it and can translate it and can govern it. So that to me is the interesting part, and how the computer science roles will have a major shift in how you show up to your job.
So, you know, I was thinking about this earlier today. If you had a pilot that is on a plane, and they had autopilot, which is funny, the name autopilot. And I was thinking that's probably where they came up with that idea, right? And would you get on a plane if there was no real pilot that understood how to fly the plane
right
completely and everything that comes with that? Would you trust that company? And because, I mean, one of the questions that came up was vibe coding. If you want to bring that up, we have Ali, who is our MC in the background doing all of this. Shout out to Ali. Give yourself a round of applause, Ali, using whatever. Come on, let's hear the round of applause music. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And then we also have a lot of people that helped us get here. Also, Caitlin, Coco, she helped publicize this. And so thank you, Caitlin. All right. And also, I want to say the Only Career Center. I mean, they helped us. Tomorrow we have our first virtual career fair with, you know, Omni being there, and IBM and CGI and all these big companies. Let's give them a round of applause as well as Crow. You're here too. Okay. So what I wanted to say is, I don't know if I would trust myself going to a doctor, you know, that doesn't have the foundations of what it's like to be in medicine, just because they're using a model to tell them that. The same way I wouldn't trust a pilot that would be just a plane that would just take off. And I need someone there to be able to understand everything from the ground up to be part of my team. So the question about vibe coding, at least the way I see it, is the idea that you don't need the fundamentals to understand the real code is I think, just simply not true, right? Like, we still need people that really understand the code and how the code operates and everything else. The engineer needs to still be an engineer. Now, they have tools to speed up their productivity, right? They have tools to help them enhance things. They have tools to help them automate the process of testing and so on and so forth, right? But that idea of vibe coding, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's probably going to be a couple of people that vibe code an app and they become millionaires. That's probably going to happen, right? But it doesn't mean that a company that is doing work for the federal government or Crow or anybody else, as you guys have contracts, that your clients are going to trust your software without having real engineers as part of your ecosystem. I don't know. Maybe comment on that a little bit.
Yeah. I'd love to jump in and put my opinion here. I think that the most beautiful part about the AI we're seeing right now is the core thing it does amazing is it's a communication barrier breaker. Whether that communication is between people and machines and machines, it's amazing in that. And I think like vibe coding gets a bad name from that perspective, because in a previous world where the best way I could express an idea was to go tell someone, hope they got it, maybe let them spend some time figuring out, I can communicate far richer ideas with these tools than I ever could in far shorter times. Now, the reverse of that is the term we like to use is confidence in accountability, because you're right. We're not jumping on a plane right now, but I had to drive a friend's Tesla home from New Orleans, and I got in it, put it in Mad Max mode, and did not touch the wheel from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. And there was no co-pilot sitting in that Tesla. So we might be 10 years away, 15 years away from a plane on that. But I think the thing that Tesla is coming with is they're coming with the receipts that give them the confidence in the accountability that they're about to be held to. And I think that's what our job as engineers is shifting to. It's how are we going to give the confidence in the accountability that we're going to be held to? And that's understanding the systems that we're building, the tools that we're using, and how we need to like understand down that stack at a certain level, because we are going to be accountable for the outcomes of these things, and that isn't going to change. And as software developers, we get to live in the future, because software is how we codify intent. And that's what we're doing with all these AI systems, is we're putting our intentions of how we want things to work out there. And then we just have to figure out the accountability aspect of it.
So I'm just going to jump in and say, Justin, we know each other. I'm not sure I can trust you anymore for just getting in a Tesla and having driving. So I mean, like, come on, bro. Like, nah, like, don't
broke my brain, dude. It was and I felt safe.
No. Well, you felt safe, but let's be clear about something. Here's a great example, right? Tesla is highly dependent on vision, right? If it was raining or if you had any issues like that are actually realistic, right, it would have been a big problem for any car that's completely based on vision, because the camera can't see through rain, it can't see through fog, it can't see. So I'm gonna actually give a plug here to Terra Radar, the first terahertz radar in the world that can see through these things, right? So that's part of what we also need to build, right, to enable the systems to sense the world better, right? Because I believe, and we haven't really touched on this, but I believe one of the biggest things in AI, other than helping us code, is going to be robotics. I think robotics is really going to be huge for us as humans. I'm going to stop talking right now and maybe have someone else say, but like, I'm just going to say, Justin, I don't know, bro. Like, I'm going to let you think about that.
As a society, we're going to have to figure out the differing levels of accountability and trust from who's deploying the systems that we're letting run our lives.
Well, that's all the EU AI Act is about, actually. Placing accountability, governance. Like, that's what our clients are worried about. Like, Texas released their law back in January. South Korea also has a new one in January. And what all of our clients are worried about is, how do you calculate for bias, hallucinations? How are you checking output? Are you making sure that that output is secure? That's our massive hurdle right now. And we're accomplishing it, but it's definitely the big concern is accountability.
I'll chime in on this vibe coding question. So our company, we're not, or at least not yet, we're not building anything that could like kill somebody or cause someone to die. So we're building kind of the bread and butter information systems that power business applications. But I think what I'm about to say is relevant to all of the risk spectrum. So we are producing about 100% of our client code with AI, but we have engineered an application architecture that kind of acts as the rails that you put this kind of general purpose coding product on top of to constrain its decision making. And it's called Grain. It's open source, but essentially there's only a few different fundamental elements part of our application architecture. And so when I ask Claude Code to implement a feature front end to back end, I can easily see whether it is introducing novel concepts that don't exist in our paradigm, or if it's following all the rules. And in addition to that, we use an approach to application development called event sourcing. And that basically just means that we build information systems that never forget what the user did or what happened or what decisions the AI made. And so we can always be held accountable and go and find the place in the data where something may have gone wrong or a certain decision was made that shouldn't have been made. We don't throw away information. And I think that not throwing away information is going to be critical in this kind of post-AI world. And then also being opinionated about what your coding agent is sitting on top of as for an application architecture is also going to be important, because that actually lets you move faster without having to micromanage what the coding agent is doing as much, because you can see when it's straying off the rails.
So, Jeremy, is there something that you'd like to add to all of this?
I don't think so. I think I lost the thread of the question, to be honest. I was so deep in the in the conversation. But yeah, if you want to remind me of the question, I'm happy. I've got an opinion about everything.
So I mean, we could, let me ask another question. I think we talked a little bit about vibe coding. So, if we think about what skills matter most going forward for students and for future future people you're going to hire, what is it? Coding, systems thinking, problem formulation, communication, or what else? I mean, we touched a little bit on this, but what would you say, like, if you're hiring a student that's in computer science and you really want them on your team, what are the things you're looking for?
I want to see their work. Like I want to say, hey, like, show me your open source project, or maybe your 10 open source projects that you worked on when you were in the university. Where do they go? What problems do they solve? Explain them to me. I'm going to independently run them myself. And so, like, we're now, because of this age of AI, like, we're able to show our work and show our ideas in a very rich way. And so, like, that's the kinds of things that I'm looking for. And then more importantly, I'm not just looking for engineers. Like, I'm looking for engineers that want to come and work on the problems that my company is focused on, and not just to, like, come and be an engineer and, like, sit in the back room and, nerd out. Those days are over. And I know that I'm just kind of echoing some of what the other panelists have said. Like, now you're going to come and be an advocate for the problem. You're going to open up Figma and you're going to prototype something with a customer directly, right? Like, we're not throwing ideas over walls anymore. It's like, hey, like, now you can sit down with an ICAC detective and, like, we can make something. And, like, we actually have been doing this. And it's like, hey, like, what tools are missing, ICAC detective? And they go, well, I wish I could have always done this. And it's like 2 hours later, we got a working prototype, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So like, I'm looking for engineering students to come on that kind of journey. And I think that all the other entrepreneurs here would probably say something similar.
Yes, something that we've experienced is hiring students out of computer science or software engineering. A lot of them are tinkerers naturally. You want to learn the newest thing, and you're always building on the latest framework. You're learning the newest code, and that can be difficult sometimes to wrangle in a business environment. So going forward, like, I think being intentional about where you tinker, and because that's a great place to learn and innovate, but also being able to show up and do three things really well is what will matter to us, I believe, at this point. And who knows how it changes, but the ability to diagnose is huge. Like, can you diagnose a problem and clearly articulate that problem and give it rails so that it's solvable? Then the ability to communicate ultimately, because you have to be able to be that ambassador. And then lastly, like systems thinking, that's a mouthful, but the idea that you can bring structure and scalability to a solution is a huge gap, because it's really easy to vibe code a prototype. It's really hard to make that a scalable solution. So that's my take.
Alex, what are your thoughts?
The number one thing I always look for is curiosity when it comes to students. Like, we don't expect you to know everything, but we do expect you, or at least we want to see you have a passion for this stuff, because I can teach you anything.
Yeah.
But if you don't have an interest and a passion for it, then you won't succeed. So just be nerdy in your interview. Just let your freak flag fly on this. Just show all the cool stuff you've done. It'd be great.
I second that.
Well, I think this is where having the ability to showcase your talent using these new tools and techniques would be really imperative. So maybe as a professor, I'm going to tell the students, go out and play with these things. I mean, we talked about Cursor. We talked about, I think, Omni, that you guys use Claude Code a lot from, I think, one of our conversations, probably other tools that you can mention, but go out and actually play with these things and create things with them and come to the interview prepared to talk about them, right? So that's a thing to take away. And that's why you should have your GitHub repo. We had somebody that I was talking to recently, and they had about 450 projects on GitHub. And I was like, they definitely have done a lot of work. And they weren't all vibe coded, by the way, by any means. I can tell you that much. So Justin, it seemed like you wanted to say something.
No, I think you're all right. I think there's two ends of the spectrum. There's a massive world of business that is too close to the problem and can't even see the possibilities that are just going to be natively apparent to people using this technology and young. And then there's the other side of the side where you can use this technology to get really, really good at something. And I think that's the best two strategies, in my opinion, is come in so deep in this thing that you can explain every aspect of your thinking, or come in just ready to expand what's possible while hearing what the problems are from the person that you're talking to, and show them that you're willing to kind of lean in. And the term when I got hooked a couple years ago in AI that really stuck out it's called the zone of proximal development. And that is the maximum, it's the things you can't quite do that you can do with a little help. And now you have this tool that will give you a little help and let you go a whole lot further. And you just got to lean into that and show people you're leaning into that.
I have one more thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. This is just more about like how to be a developer, because in a sense, a lot is changing, and in another sense, some things aren't changing so much. For like all of developer history, everyone's kind of been like had the same tool sets available to them, whether it's like different code editors that people like to use or different workflows. Some people like to customize their workflow a lot, and other people are minimalists. I'm a minimalist, so like I don't go seeking out all of the AI tools. I find that Claude Code works for me, and that's what I use to be effective. And if it starts like sucking or something, then I'll go find something else. But that's my personal workflow. And so just like 2 years ago, or let's say 5 years ago, before any of this AI stuff existed, as a new developer entering the workforce, you need to find the tools that represent your personal workflow that lets you do the best work you can do. And if we ask 10 developers in a room like what their workflow is, you're going to get 10 different answers. And it's just like that with these AI tools as well. Go find the ones that work the best for you. Try them all, but find the ones that work best for you and use those. Use the ones that work the best for you so that when you're in an interview and someone asks you how you work, you already have an answer for, like, I have this highly personalized workflow that really works for me and I'm able to produce cool stuff with it. And it's probably different than yours. And we can talk about the differences and share and compare and contrast our experiences. So that's just a little bit about just being a developer in the workforce.
That's so good, Cameron, because one of our like red flags on a candidate is when they're a tool chaser and they're always, using the latest and greatest thing. It's a signal that they might not have established that identity in that workflow. So that's a great piece of advice.
So we're getting more questions. We have one from Jude. How will we as developers navigate the growing ethics concerns surrounding these new AI breakthroughs? I am interested and already have some experience in developing with these new tools, but I'm just curious. So I guess the question is, how do as developers navigate the growing ethics concerns surrounding these new AI breakthroughs? Who would like to try to take that on?
I mean, I can get us started. I don't know that we'll be able to get the context on this question. Maybe we will, but what aspect of all of this are we talking about? Which ethical premise do we want to answer a question for? Because I think there's a lot of different directions you could go with that. So if anyone knows what the question is trying to get across, that'd be great.
Well, so I definitely can provide one that that we see in my problem space. So we have developers that build machine learning models, and they put them out on on various different distribution platforms, and then people who are offenders of children will take these technologies and they'll use it to generate child exploitation material. And maybe that material is whole from scratch generated. Sometimes it's just modified. But now our officers around the world are being inundated by this. So like, when it comes to being an engineer and building technologies or like designing the next machine learning model or the next multimodal model, we have to think about building building these things with kind of like a safe by design premise. That's still an area of major research. Like we need engineers to come into that safe by design area. And so like just from an ethical foundation, you may say, well, I built my model to like generate pictures of flowers for my flower camera app on the on the iPhone and other platforms. But at the end of the day, people are misusing it. So we have to be really, really conscious about what we make and why we make and how we make it.
I actually spoke at an insurance conference a few months ago on this topic, where we're not going to see a US-wide regulation when it comes to like ethics and bias and protected characteristics. But what we're starting to see is a state-by-state patchwork of different laws, as well as on the international side of things, so South Korea, the Saudis, Argentina, stuff like that, where they're all kind of dancing along to the same rhythm, where it's like, how are you protecting for protected characteristics? How are you understanding bias? How are you preventing someone from having a poor experience that could relate to an ethical concern? And that's going to be state by state, and it's only going to get more complex. So I think we're just at the beginning of how we're going to check for ethics and bias.
So I think this is where I'm going to jump in and say, a lot of us in the STEM world are consistently talking about how the humanities is not really where we need to go, for solving problems. But I think this is an era where like we're going to demand more from the humanities to be involved, right? We have a lot of ethical concerns, a lot of social aspects that are going to change. The whole idea of AI potentially taking jobs, which we touched base on this a little bit, but I also think it's going to create a lot of new jobs, and we can have that discussion as well. But I think this is where I think some of our students in the STEM world need to be well-rounded individuals, and they need to understand ethics, and they need to understand sociology, and they need to understand psychology a lot more than they used to, because like everyone said in here, they're not going to be the traditional engineers, right? So perhaps this is my duty as chair to tell any student that's looking at this right now, go out and learn about ethics and learn about sociology and learn about psychology. And those courses that you take, I remember when I was at Purdue, I took a class and it was art appreciation. And I was like, why do I have to take that class? Like, I don't want to appreciate art, right? And then I feel like those courses have really made me a much more well-rounded individual. Like Com 101, that was a very critical class that I had to take as part of my curriculum so I can communicate better. I think you see that I'm decent at communicating at this point, right? So, but it was practice that we had in college, and it was practice having that every single day. So please, if you're listening, call to action, go out, study ethics, study biology, study psychology, study sociology, and just become a more well-rounded person, because the things that we do in engineering have an impact on people, right? They have an impact on people, a tangible impact, a sociological impact, a mental health impact, right? And we should perhaps be more aware of that when we're building all of these things. Okay, we got another question here. What's one mistake you see developers make when adopting AI tools? I think there's probably a lot of mistakes, but perhaps we can keep it open, and maybe if anybody has something they'd like to say.
This is something that I can talk to for sure. I was actually just responding to her. My take on it has been, if you looked at AI development tools, or like these assistive development tools, say a year ago, and you said, oh, I tried, I don't know, Cursor, and there's others, and they really didn't work very well. And then you told all your friends about it. You went on social media and you said it was terrible. Like, why are people wasting their time with this? Fast forward to today, like 1 year later, it is so drastically different in terms of what these capabilities can do, that like, if you made fun of it a year ago and then you ignored it, basically, like, I'm here to tell you that you're a whole year behind at this point. You can still catch up. But don't wait another year, because otherwise, like I said earlier, if AI can take your job, it will.
Yeah, I think the word for us is intent. And the way these models and all models kind of work, to some extent, simplistically, is if you put very little information in, you're going to get the average output, or whatever that architecture is. And your real job should be understanding how to put the inputs in to get the outputs you're going for. And I think, like, thinking that you can skip the thinking and the kind of expression of your actual intentions and get some magic kind of mind reading outcome is it's short-sighted. And so these tools are very amazing at executing, but they have no desire or opinion, or like, they feel just as cool about doing the complete wrong thing as they do as actually doing what I want. And so we call this concept operationalizing intent. And we look at it across 4 spectrums. How do you express that intent? How do you execute that intent? How do you observe that intent? And how do you realize that this is an adaptation cycle that you're going to be running? And so trying to, like, get out of the actual engineering underneath it, it's not like we're saying there isn't still a complex system underneath it. There is.
So quick question. What do you guys think of Maltbook then? Right? And what some of the AI is saying, I mean, their intent is pretty ridiculous. Let's take over. Let's destroy humanity. I mean, these things are actually, I mean, they're saying the words, but maybe soon enough they'll be able to build systems to make that a reality if their function or cost function, or what do you want to call it, is maximized so they can do these things, right? So maybe, like, anybody has any inputs on that? I want to ask Jeremy. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on that?
One part enamored and one part terrified, as probably most of us. But I think, like, the way I think about it, and this came from a conversation I had with Justin one time, but there's two ways to look at this moment, and one is like technology as an end, and one is technology as a means to an end. And I think the mistake that some people make is technology as the end. Like, let's just maximize everything we can do with this, no matter what, right? Like, take over the world with AI. The other version is, how do we use this technology to get to an end? And it's not a technology end. It's like, how do we make human lives better? How do we, drive business? How do we solve problems? And if you as a developer understand that this tech is a means to an end, and you can clearly, paint a picture of that end, then you'll start working in the right direction where you can create value. If you're just driving for technology's sake, for me, that's where I see developers go rogue, and there's not really a why behind the what. So I don't know if that answer makes sense, but that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I think it does. I think what I find fascinating, I don't know, have you guys ever watched the podcast talks with Roman Yamplowski, who's at University of Louisville? He's actually, I want to consider him a friend. He knows me, I know him. He's very famous in this point in time because we talk about AI safety. So for those of you that know, you don't know, my area of research is in cybersecurity and digital forensics, right? And I love AI on multiple levels, but for me, it opens up a whole can of worms in terms of security, right? I mean, you're giving this thing complete control over your system in some cases, and what could potentially happen, right? And he talks about AI safety, and it's really scary, some of the things he talks about with us getting closer to artificial general intelligence and moving to super intelligence and so on and so forth. What does that mean? Because it's no longer, the intent may not matter, Justin, in those specific situations, because if they can create their own intent, right, and they operate based on the agents or the AI, I mean, maybe we're far away from that. Maybe we're not at all, because some people are saying we're going to reach artificial general intelligence in next year, right? So I think these conversations are also important from a computer science perspective, because it's not just about coding, right? It's also about protecting. Cybersecurity is part of our field, right? Digital forensics and investigations is part of our field. How do we investigate these failures? How do we secure these systems if they become more agentic? And how do we secure them if they're making their own decisions and creating their own cost functions, right? That's an area that's going to continue to grow in demand. And Corey, I know you've had a lot of experience in the cyber world. Maybe you can offer some insight on some of the things that you've thought about. Maybe.
Yeah, I would just say that that solutions to problems are not just, it doesn't just require tech, right? Like most solutions to problems are really requiring a multidisciplinary approach. And so I know one of my colleagues here said, if you just are looking at kind of tech to be the means to the ends, maybe you're going down the wrong path. And I agree with that. So like, before I came to Project Vic, I worked for 25 years in the federal government system and for the contractors in the military. And I worked in cybersecurity, and specifically I worked in cybersecurity, trying to defend our country against other nation state advanced risks and threats. And what I realized, it took me a long time. I was like, this is just a tech thing. We can build better detection mechanisms and better firewalls and better, security architectures. But at the end of the day, I realized, like, it's not a technology problem. It's really a foreign affairs problem. And so it's like, as a technologist, as an engineer, I can't get another country to say, like, I don't want to steal your stuff anymore. So when I realized that, and then I looked at other problems in this, in this space in cyber, and I realized that, we really can work together and band together to maybe like defeat child exploitation. It's a different kind of problem, but it's still in the cyber domain. So I would just encourage people to, to realize that, developing a broad set of skills and experience is really important, yet having one or two areas that you're really deep in is really something that I think you need going forward. And that just to realize that, the multidisciplinary approach is generally the best approach when trying to solve problems.
This is actually a new offering we're working on at Crow, where we're coming up with an AI security offering where we can do an assessment for a client, figure out the gaps, and then write up the remediations and help them through that process. We're using research from OWASP, MITRE, Cloud Security Alliance, and CIS. And Abraham, I'm going to have to pick your brain on this probably next week and see what I'm missing. But AI security is becoming one of the hottest things in the market right now with our clients. AI governance started it, then AI security is the next step.
Yeah, we just did a lot of work on MCP servers, and we, some of our students crafted some interesting attacks against MCP servers that work specifically with certain models and things like that. So I the point is, things are a double-edged sword, right? Like, it's great for efficiency, and people need to know it because the job market is demanding it, and so all the students understand that. But it's also really important that we look at things from a multidisciplinary angle and be like, okay, we're going to do this. Is it going to cause more security problems for our ecosystem? And how do we solve that, right? And so on and so forth. So I think it's very important to look at it from multiple angles. I do have a question that is for students, and I want us to have a conversation about it. How should students and professionals interpret large-scale layoffs at companies like Amazon in the context of long-term tech careers? I think most universities are seeing a drop in their CS enrollments because there's a lot of things saying you don't need CS people. You can just go out and vibe code your way to heaven. And that's a true story. Like, I hear a lot of people talking about that every single day. So what do you guys think about that? And how do you interpret that from your perspectives?
Well, I definitely have a perspective on it. So when you hear about the big publicly traded companies laying people off, and then perhaps the byline says something about it was because of AI. Look, at the end of the day, these companies will say, well, I laid off 5,000 or 10 or 15,000, and maybe next quarter we might lay off some more. But because they're publicly traded, essentially, like if they lay off 5,000 people, they roughly get about an extra $1 billion of margin to report to Wall Street. And so, like, the job of the CEO of the major corporations is to drive value for investors, aka Wall Street. And so when you're an engineer working in these big companies, you have to understand that. That is the most important thing. It's not your job, it's not your career, it's not the tools that you use, it's not how you got there or who you know. When they need to deliver better margin for their investors, they're going to do it. So don't take it personally. And that's why I say, like, we're in a time right now where you have the ability, you have these like super intelligence sorts of capabilities at your disposal. You can solve any problem you want to. Go get with a couple of your friends and go make a company. Like, there's no better time to be an entrepreneur than right now.
Yeah, I'll say these big companies have a lot of them, and not all of them are really laying off because of AI, but a lot of them that are, they've been spending a long time being prepared for this moment. But there's probably like 35 million businesses in the US that have not been doing that need these same things, and that are looking for people to come help them do this. And so I would say, like, that's the simple reframe I would look at, exactly kind of parroting what you're saying there, Corey.
So I mean, one of the stats that I always look at and I talk to people about is, during COVID, a lot of companies overhired, and I feel like AI is somehow being used as a scapegoat to fire people because again, it's about the margins and everything, Corey, but that overhiring is like, oh, we can just use this moment in time to fire people so that we can make us more profitable, so to speak, right? And I think now it doesn't mean that AI doesn't have utility. Like, that's not what I'm saying, right? And I think people should not interpret that as me saying that there is no utility for AI, because there definitely is. And 2 years ago, my perspective was completely different than now, and that's why we've built an entire bachelor's degree in AI that's going to launch soon here at LSU, because we believe in it. Although one thing I think from an academic perspective that I've been looking at, and I think this is an important distinction for students and parents to really look at, right? One thing I've noticed is a lot of people are creating AI programs, but they're not AI programs. a lot of people are taking what I call lightweight data science programs, right? And they're trying to market them as AI programs. And data science is great. I'm not saying it's not fantastic, but it's just the analysis of data and coming up with some insights about the data, right? But AI is building a system end to end that's going to be automated in some form, like a self-driving car, for example. That's really AI, right? So I think that misconception of what AI is something we also all have to start talking about. Does anyone have any insight or ideas similar to mine or different than mine? And I'm okay with that, about what AI is compared to like data science.
So I did the analytics program at LSU, the master's, and we didn't have the AI program they were doing back then. And that was a great starting point that allowed me to get into Cognizant, help create their AI consulting practice, because the analytics program gave me a great foundation, and then I built my skills up from there. But yeah, I think there's definitely a difference.
Anybody else?
So yeah, I can add to this. Look, from a data science perspective, when you're a data science student, you're being equipped with the skills to go into a business or an agency or employer and help them capture the data that they have at their disposal, interpret that data, and use that data to drive decision making so that the business goes in perhaps a better direction. In terms of artificial intelligence, this is a much, much broader umbrella, right? So maybe as a data scientist, you might get hired by a roofing company to say, hey, like, help me understand the market of where we go. And then that roofing company might hire an AI engineer to say, hey, like, I'm seeing these humanoid robots and like, I need help up on these rooftops because I don't have enough people. So like, help me build a humanoid robot that can reason through a bunch of generic tasks, that a human roofer would do. And so like they're way drastically different from one another, although there are overlaps in where these two professions will meet.
I have some thoughts on this. Like everyone here has said so far, data science is about finding insights in data. But I think AI engineering is going to become so back in the day, if you're a software engineer, you might be building information systems like for business applications or whatever, and there might be someone who is an AI expert on your team, but there's kind of a boundary between what you and that person do. And as the information system developer, you don't have to know so much about interacting with AI. You just have to use the outputs of that other team member. But data science is not information system development. Information system development is just run-of-the-mill software development and software engineering. And now, as software engineers, we're being asked to accumulate some skills around using AI technology to actually do our work more quickly, but also skills that involve actually being able to build information systems that integrate deeply with the recent advancements in AI. And I think that is completely different from data science as a discipline.
So I always give this analogy, and I've talked about it a couple of times on LinkedIn. Our job, I think, in CSE moving forward, if you think of AI as a wave, and I always use this analogy, what we're trying to produce is students that don't just ride the wave. We're trying to produce students that build the surfboard, right? And I think what we really need is we need more people that can build that surfboard and understand how the surfboard is built. Because in order to really have major advancements in AI as an institution and as a country and as a whole, we need people that don't just use the existing things. We need people that can create foundational models. We need people that understand the entire engineering of the AI pipeline and how to do these things. We need people that can apply AI to increase their code efficiency and new ways of making sure that their code works and is verified and validated. Yesterday I was thinking about this. I was like, maybe there's going to be a new role that's going to emerge, and that new role could be like an AI verification engineer. Because I think that role needs to have both the underpinning technical skills as well as the ability to ensure that the code is verified and validated. To your point, Justin, the accountability piece, right? So what are you guys' thoughts on it? I think that's a crazy idea that there's going to be this new role that's going to emerge.
I think it's dead on.
Yeah, I think we're real close to that.
Yeah.
I think as system developers, especially in the product space, there's a really interesting need for developing the platforms and tools and interactions that allow people to quickly do that verification in the context of whatever thing they're verifying. And that's like a really interesting space to explore as well, because I think the point of AI in systems is to carry out the intent of the people deploying those systems. And that's going to be like the tools people want, is how can they really make sure that that intent is being carried out? How can they verify that intent? And I think it's really, really similar to marketing, which is why I think, like you mentioned earlier, communication and those other skills are going to be just as valuable, because you got to go communicate those, like why those verifications are correct to the people making these decisions.
Yeah, I would say what I'm seeing, Abe, is that there are probably several more roles that are going to develop here, in the next year to two. And there's probably some roles that we can't even imagine at this point, right? But things like, like maybe in the future, a company has their Hugging Face model engineer, right, whose job it is to take the outputs and recommendations of a data scientist, go to Hugging Face and say, okay, like what models are available that help us get close, and now I can like fine tune those models. Then you're working with a DevOps engineer to implement and deploy those things. So like we're asking our engineers to learn new skills, but again there are definitely new roles. I think another new role that's coming out is just in the area of AI safety. So like just to make sure that, like maybe you have a chat bot that's in your product, and you want to make sure that chat bot is sufficiently constrained to not generate its own ideas, but to like reflect the evidence that it has. Those are things that we're dealing with right now. Is there a job for that? No. Is there a need for it? Yes. But there's no job title out there yet. And so I think like, those of you that are in academia, teaching students, you gotta like think through this and figure out, where's the puck going, and then teach your students to go skate to where the puck's going to be, when they graduate or when they need an internship.
All right. And for all the students watching, just remember our AI and Tech Career Fair is tomorrow. So if you haven't registered, please go ahead and register. Again, great companies are going to be there, including some of the companies that are with us today on the panel. So make sure you do that. If you don't, it's your loss, as you know, because you want to get in front of these companies. You want to network. We're telling you that you got to be able to communicate. So go out there and communicate with these companies and let them know about the cool projects you're working on. All right. So we have two more questions that have come through our social media. The first one is by Jewel. One of the main things that I've seen fall, and not just with the rise of AI, but now with AIs, is it's exponentially increased in optimization of code, language choice, memory, data structures, etc. How is optimization coming into play, or the lack thereof? Does anyone have any comments on that?
Yeah, sure. So
I was gonna be like, I can go ask Chat GPT and see what.
Yeah, let me go ask. Optimization. So for me, just being a software engineer, the idea that I would like overly optimize something I'm working on too soon is still a thing that I avoid. So it's always just let me get this working, and then as I measure something that needs to be optimized in the course of running the software, I'll optimize it. So from that angle, I'm not really thinking too much about optimization. But from the point of view of optimizing my workflow, yeah, I choose a language. So I'm a Clojure developer, which is a Lisp dialect. I choose that language because it's more concise. And then I also choose my platform architecture, Grain, which I mentioned earlier, because I'm optimizing the coding agent product that I'm using's ability to actually do the work that I needed to do. And so I don't have to, I've seen a lot of people that have a lot of like agent markdown files and all sorts of stuff, but I'm a minimalist. And so my architecture and my language and everything that I do is optimized to allow me to not have to micromanage the AI. And so my prompts are often don't include very much context because my project environment is offering so much ambient context that the AI is just like sort of forced to go and do what I want it to do. And so that may be a different like flavor of optimization than the questioner was asking about, but that's what I think about it.
Anyone else?
Go ahead.
I'll
Alex.
go real quick. Yeah, this has become the most popular use case for our clients, especially in the dev team. They're wondering, how on earth do we just make our lives easier using AI? And that's all about the optimization and looking at, Amazon Q and Claude Code and implementing those to optimize the development side of the company. It's a huge need for it.
Mm-hmm. Cameron, I would ask on the premature optimization question, do you feel now safer not optimizing because you feel you have a stronger tool to go optimize afterwards once you realize you need to? Has that changed?
It's only made it better, I guess, because I know that like I'm probably just attacking the lowest hanging fruit. And as soon as I see some kind of like latency that I want to clean up or whatever, all I have to do is ask Claude Code and say, hey, what's up with this? And then it's definitely going to find like one or two things that could just be a little cleaner or cached right or whatever. And so, yeah, there's like this latent potential at all times to improve something where like back in the day, you wouldn't prematurely optimize and then you would figure out, oh, I need to optimize this. And then you would have to spend a couple days or more getting that solution in place. But now there's this like latent potential. So like you say, oh, I need to optimize this. Okay, I optimized it in 10 minutes because the amount of labor required to actually get the full picture and then figure out what pieces to move and place in different areas is just that much faster. And that's one of the most amazing things.
So, recently we had an experiment that we ran and we converted a very difficult code base, and I don't want to release this publicly, that was written in Python to Rust. And we had this, my student is a genius. He's great. Kudos to Taha, for doing this work. But he converted a very difficult thing to convert. We haven't been able to do that in our field from Python to Rust. And it cost around $2,500 in terms of tokens. We were looking at that and we're like, oh my God, this would have cost us like $500,000 to $1 million to be able to do this without these very clever techniques. I mean, it wasn't just like, hey, take this and convert it. There was very specific steps. Again, he's a pilot. He knows how to use and how to fly the plane, and he made it work. So, how do you see that as an impact in terms of developers? Do you think are you hiring developers based on the stack they can code in? I mean, maybe Corey, maybe you have a perspective on that.
Yeah. It used to be where, once you got your first job, let's just say you got hired by company A, and and the senior engineers in company A already have some like monolithic system. Perhaps that monolithic system is built on a tech stack. You then spend 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years learning that tech stack, and then you go, okay, it's time for me to go find another job. And so you go out and you put your resume out. This is how it used to be. And you would get interviews based on the tech stack that you basically listed in your resume. And you would get interviewed by people who understood that tech stack. And if you knew like enough about their tech stack, then maybe you could get hired. And so I think that, going forward, your deep knowledge of a specific tech stack, it really doesn't matter so much anymore. And I think that over time it's gonna matter even less. So just like Abe and his students are basically rewriting old software into modern languages. We're doing the same sort of thing, and so like now you can have the benefits of what humans pieced together. Maybe took years and years and millions of dollars of budget to produce. And now we can point AI at those and say, okay, like, yes, that's buggy. Yes, there's security issues that are inherent to that language. And so like you look at it and say, okay, wait, maybe we can get better performance out of Rust. We're going to get better security out of Rust. Obviously, the Rust community is going to be excited about more adopters. But now, like maybe in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, you can take that, that really big complex system in your domain and just migrate it to a modern language. So like this is something that I think we're going to see this sort of thing across all industries, not just in the cyber domain.
Yeah, maybe we're gonna have a new sort of job, like a language migrator. Like like you're the expert of taking this old code base and migrating over to kind of the new code bases. Because again, I think like to do it well, right? I mean, it took 66 hours to do it, which is not a lot, but it's a lot because you still have to interact with it and make sure it's doing the right thing and monitor it. And like, it's not a quick like 1 + 1 = 2 kind of a situation. All right. I think we have one more question from the audience, and maybe we'll move on to our final closing question. Juan Rodriguez. I know this guy. He's our undergraduate program coordinator. Thank you, Juan, for asking us this question. To follow on the point regarding the ethics, what are your thoughts on transparency regarding the training data use, specifically in terms of art, music, performances, etc.? That's a good question. Probably a lot more legal things are going to start transpiring in the near future, right? Anybody want to tackle this and just have everyone's laughing like we don't know how to answer this? I'm going to ask Jeremy to do this. I want Jeremy to chime in because he's in that world more than us a little bit there. So Jeremy, come on, tell us what you think about this.
I'm a musician first too, so that there's like a whole element to this that is very confusing for me, but I don't know. I mean, is AI a person or is AI not a person is like maybe the first question, because everyone is already citing other sources, and like a musician writes a song by pulling from all of their favorite songs. And one part of me says, what's the difference? If a machine does that, why is it any different? But the other part of me says, obviously we should know that. Like we should know where they're pulling from. I think if I had to default, it would be toward transparency. It feels like a black box right now, and that doesn't feel very open. But I truly don't know. This is so out of my pay grade in terms of even where to start.
Well, I will say, like, one of my favorite sort of documentaries that someone created randomly on the internet is called "Everything Is a Remix." You might, if you've never, I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's an old one, but it's a goodie, and maybe you should watch this. And I always, one of the defining moments when I was in college, because I grew up in Abu Dhabi, came to the U.S., went to Purdue, and I heard this song by Jay-Z, and I don't want to mention the name of the song publicly. And I was like, I know the beat for this song. Yeah. It came from an old Arabic song that my dad used to play. It's like literally it was just stolen, and and I don't know if it was stolen, but probably stolen. And when I play it now, it's like, oh my God, yeah, that's the song. But here's the thing: I think we need to have, I want to open it up for other people to give us their opinion about this. But everything is a remix to some extent. Now, how we define it and how we cite it and the ethics behind it is, I think, critical. Yeah. Corey started as a trumpet major, right, Corey? I remember you telling me that. And I went with you once to buy a trumpet piece from, where was it? We were in
Monet. Yeah, the Monet.
Was it in Portland? Was it in Portland? Yeah, I remember we were in Portland at a conference. So what is your program? And I think sometime you were trying to start a startup to support musicians. So what do you love AI? How do you feel about this, man?
Well, so just like Jeremy said, I'm a musician as well, and I've been playing the trumpet almost my whole life now. And so one of the things that my family does on the side is we operate a small concert venue for local artists. And those local artists show up. Sometimes they have AI generated beat tracks. Sometimes they've got AI generated video that they want to stream alongside their performance. And it was really interesting, like taking off kind of my musician hat. I was hanging out with some of my colleagues at Project Vic last week, And they both came to the same conclusion that they were doing the same thing, where where they each have like their favorite artist in different genres. And what they found through conversation is that they were trying to improve their Suno prompting to generate more accurate sounding songs about like just weird stuff in their lives. So like the Suno would like generate lyrics that were funny about something in their lives. But they wanted it to sound like their favorite singer. And so we were driving down the road and they were playing it like, hey, like, listen to how close this is to Frank Sinatra. And then they were talking about how their prompting strategy was getting it closer and closer and closer to sounding like Frank Sinatra, or Eminem was the other one. It was really hilarious to see that two other people, that work with me in Project Vic are doing the same kind of thing independently, kind of for the same reasons, and just having fun with it. So, so like AI is not all about business. There's so much fun you can do with this technology too.
I will say really quick, when it comes to training data, we're seeing disclosures requirements in future legislation from California and New York about disclosing what training data was used and specific parameters of that data, and then how that information is displayed on a model card that customers can see for free. It's easily available on the website. So disclosure of training data is becoming a much bigger issue in the market.
Do we have any other artists? I know our MC in the background, he's an artist, Ali. Any other artists here?
Yeah, I could talk about it for a second. I also make music. I think AI and art is just an absolute mess. It's like there's a lot of competing truths, and depending on which of those truths you subscribe to is going to change your perspective dramatically from someone else's. So like in the transparency thing, yeah, if my music was ever used to produce some kind of output for someone else, I would want to know that this thing has been trained on my music, because I want to have given permission for that or not given permission for it. And I think there's been a lot of theft in general, in terms of how like LLMs have been trained, how how music AIs have been trained, how visual art AIs have been trained. And I think that the world needs to be accountable for that, so that we're all operating honestly. But then there's also value judgments that people are bringing to the table. Like, one of the cool things about AI is that it's not just for business, it's actually fun. Like, you get to do cool and interesting things that you couldn't have done before. And some people think that an AI generated artifact in art has no life or no soul. And then other people think that, oh, it's so great that someone who isn't trained as an artist or whatever can actually come up with something and produce something that they find interesting. And so there's all of these like directly contradictory truths that people are bringing to the table that I find interesting. Like, I can say for me, I personally will never use AI to make music. The one exception to that is maybe stem separation, if I need to hear a part of something that I'm analyzing a bit better. But there are other people that are out there just straight up making albums and stuff with AI, and like whether that's good or not is for them and the people that listen to it to decide. It's very confusing. It's a very confusing subject that I think is going to take like years and years to really figure out what it means for everybody in a satisfying way.
So I'm going to throw a plug in to Paper Jams AI. This is a channel that me and my colleague Andrew Webb, we're on Instagram, we are on TikTok. So what we did is we used Suno to generate songs from research paper abstracts. Okay. So the idea is scientific papers are boring. Can we make it more exciting for people to listen to the abstracts of the research papers? And we use Suno to do that. And Andrew sometimes spends hours upon hours because, the abstracts don't really, the lyrics don't match. They're not real lyrics. But the idea, and we talked about this at length before we went public with this, because we're like, we don't want to do something that's negative. We don't want to take artists' jobs away or anything like that. But then we're like, what artist is going to create a song from an abstract of a scientific paper, right? Like, the chances of that happening are like honestly extremely minimal. So we're not taking an artist's job. We're not taking an artist's job away, right? And that's kind of why we were like ethically okay with using it for this specific purpose. So I think it depends again on the purpose, right, of why you're using this. But I would encourage you all to listen to our songs. Some of them are hilarious, and you can maybe learn a little about science by doing so. With that said, and this is our final question, and I would like each of you to offer your perspective on this. If you were a student or early career professional starting today, knowing everything you know about AI, what would you stop worrying about? What would you start doing immediately? And what would you double down on to win over the next 5 years? And win is the key thing here, because at LSU, we built teams that win from Louisiana to the world. All right. So what would you do tomorrow if you're an early career professional and you know what you know? And I'm going to give the start to, let's say, Jeremy.
I would, first of all, I would stop focusing on the fears and the threats of AI and start focusing on the opportunity that is in front of you. And what I would start doing immediately is solving my own problems first with the technology that is in front of me. Like, if you're bad at remembering things, create infinite memory. If you're bad at grocery shopping, solve that problem. Whatever the problem is, solve that for yourself. And that is the best way to learn, is just by applying this stuff to your life. And eventually you'll find a problem that has real value in the world, and that might end up being your future. And like, the smaller the problem, the better. You know, you don't have to change the whole world, just fix a little thing. So that would be my advice, just start solving your own problems.
All right, I'm going to move it on to Alex.
I would stop stressing about memorizing code so much. That was a big problem when I was in school, just memorizing how to write code. But now obviously we have so many tools, it's perfect. What I would start doing, and for early career right after graduation, I would get right into studying for certifications, because it is so hard once you graduated, you're making money, you're happy, you're going out to brunch on Sundays, and you stop that studying student mentality, then you have to get back into it. It is so painful. So while you're recently graduated, continue studying for certifications in your free time. And that will really help you get to that next level before other recent grads.
Did any of you ever have that professor that put the code on a projector? Or do you guys remember the projectors where you would write things by hand? And then I would get an exam and I would have to write the code. So it's interesting, because I felt like I hated it. I'm not going to lie, but I learned a lot from it too, right? Because there's something tactile about me writing code down with a pen on a piece of paper. But who's counting? Maybe I am. Justin, what do you think about this?
Stop, start, double. Okay, I think you should really stop worrying about whether you should have started sooner or you're behind, period, because like that is going to solve nothing, and everything you do is going to compound starting from right now. What you should start doing to really kind of double down on what you said, Abe, is you should start writing more, because writing is going to go away from the medium that we use to communicate, but it's still the best way we have to express our thinking. And that's how we make sure what we're putting into these systems is correct, is by being able to express our thinking. And what you should double down on is being accountable for the outcome of the things that you put out into the world. And so I think that it's going to come very easy to put things out into the world with this technology, and really doubling down on your accountability, why you did it, the choices you made is going to be really important for you to not necessarily to put out there, but to have ready when kind of asked about.
All right. Let's move on to Corey.
First, I would say that I 100% agree with Jeremy's assessment, but I would add that in addition to using technology to try to help solve your personal issues that you encounter, get together with your friends when you're a freshman. When you're a freshman in engineering school, get a couple of your friends, your roommates, the people who live in the dorm with you, the folks that are sitting in Abe's lab right now, work on solving those problems together. And then by the second year, pick the people that you really like working with and go start a company. And then keep learning. Don't drop out of school. That's not a good thing. but continue. Maybe go do your master's degree. Now you have a company on the side. Use that company to go do good, right? Like take your company, take your colleagues, go to the local food pantry and say, hey, is there something that we can use code to like optimize, how you manage the food pantry? Go to the local preschool, do the same thing. Go find other problems in your community, learn how to work with people, develop your entrepreneurship skills, learn to take risk. And then, when you graduate, now you got a company, you got a bunch of clients and customers and experience, and you're working with your friends that you went to school with. And then get out there and tackle the problems that you really want to work on, and stop worrying about what comes tomorrow. Time's on your side when you're young. Make sure that you save for retirement as soon as you can, because it will pay off for you. I promise you. And so the future is super bright when you're young and you're in college. Don't ever forget that. Don't let anybody else try to convince you otherwise.
Well, thank you, Corey. That was very insightful. You were talking about, collaborating on AI and things like that. That took me back a little bit about the music thing, because my wife absolutely hates using AI for art. She's 100% nope, this is going to destroy humanity, right? But the other thing that's kind of interesting is one time I was on another panel, maybe 2-3 years ago, and there was someone on the panel that said they have to use AI to talk to their significant other. So whatever they want to send a message, they would use AI to reframe their messaging. And basically, when it came to my turn, I said, if I did that, my wife would let me go tomorrow. Like, our marriage would not exist, right? That's not a plausible thing. Okay. Maybe not use AI to make you connect with people is probably something you should not do, is all I'm saying. But I'm going to pass it on to Cameron. I think I think the best for last, maybe.
I don't know about that.
Your insight. I think everybody said their piece. It's your turn, Cameron. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I think stop listening to people on social media about all this AI stuff and start forming your own perspective and get your own personal experience active in actually working with this stuff. That's a me thing. I ignore like 99% of content. I go read research papers and I try to find the stuff that is actually meaningful and is going to last, like, fundamentally. I would say ask yourself a question. Ask yourself, where do I need to be? Like, what do I need to know 5 years from now to stand out amongst my peers? I asked myself that back when I was in school and getting out of school, and that's part of how I got where I'm at today. So start looking into the future. And then also go do something that wasn't possible to do for one person a year or two ago. That's a thing now. So find something hard and just start. You don't have to think about it too hard. Just start doing something and you'll find yourself working on stuff that wouldn't have been possible for one person a couple years ago. So just go figure out what that is for you and start working on stuff so you can stand out and then you can be more successful.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for being on our panel. I think everybody talked about their perspective. Did I miss anybody on the last question? No? All right, just making sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for everybody that watched us and asked us questions. Thank you to Ali for managing and being our MC in the background. Thank you to Caitlin. Thank you for everybody and students. If you're watching, hopefully you learned something. And have a wonderful day. This was our first panel. Bye-bye.